Thank you very much. Mic on? Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah, it seems so. Okay. I always give away a lot of Bitcoin during my talks. It's always about lunch money. But nowadays, like, all of that Bitcoin that I gave away is like at least a tank of petrol these days. So happy all-time highs to everyone that celebrates, including myself. It's great times. But today I'm not going to give away Bitcoin. I'm giving away something equally as valuable. This book, The Sovereign Individual. So if you hang around till the end, you can stand a chance to win it. So what is money? If I ask that question to 200 people, I'll probably get 200 different answers. My definition of money is probably as valid as anyone else's, and it's that it's basically a ledger to allocate the division of labor, or resources for that matter. And to illustrate that, we can go back to a few centuries to the island of Yap. Now, the island of Yap is a very interesting case study in the history of money, because when monetary economists first found the island of Yap, they found that these people have an economy there, and they all use limestones as currency. These massive rocks that you see in these pictures here. Now, something very interesting about that is that these currencies were scarce, or these rocks, because they were quarried on another island called Palau, which is about 600 kilometers from the island of Yap. And people would go there in their canoes to that island, and then they would quarry the rocks and then bring it back. And then they'd use it as currency. But you can see that it's not very portable, right? I mean, these are massive stones. But it shows us a very key characteristic of money, because they didn't actually trade these rocks. If you had one of these in your backyard, you can spend it. But after you've spent it, you bought a coffee or whatever with it, it's not yours anymore. It's now the receiver's money, but it can remain in your backyard because it's too difficult to move. But through a gossip protocol, the community all agreed and knew that that rock's not yours anymore. It's now the guy who sold you the coffee. It's his rock. Right? So that teaches us something very, very key about money. I mean, they've even stretched it a little bit further, in that once you've quarried the rock and you were canoeing back to the island of Yap, and your canoe capsized, and your rock's now at the bottom of the ocean, you still had ownership of that rock. All right? Because everyone trusted each other, and that's a very, very key word, is trust. And then it was this ledger that lived in everyone's minds, and everyone had consensus about who owns what. And it worked. It worked very well. Now, I'm going to take a slight detour, and then I'm going to return to that story. So the CSIR is a proudly state-owned entity. I can say that with a lot of pride. It's a massive place, actually. It employs more than 2,000 people, of which there's more than 300 PhDs. Every time I'm in a meeting, it's always prof or doctor. And it's comprised of 9 clusters. You can see the names there, and that will give you some sort of an idea of what the CSIR focuses on, like future production, agriculture and food, enterprises and next-gen enterprises and institution, defense and security, health. It basically covers every aspect of the South African economy. Now, the CSIR was created in 1945, and it has historically been instrumental in South Africa's growth. It has contributed to more than 50 global inventions and scientific breakthroughs. And there you can see, in the beginning, it focused on mining, agriculture, and manufacturing. And over the years, it increased its scope to chemistry, biology, material sciences, and nowadays, digital advancements and the fourth industrial revolution. So now, if we go back in history a bit, well, this is a bit after the island of Yap and the economy there, I'm going to take you through a very short journey of history. So back in the 1950s and 60s, that's more or less when the transistor was created. And computers obviously saw the light soon after. That picture which you see there is called an IBM 305. That was one of the very first computers. And you can see it wasn't very portable. It cost about $10,000 per megabyte of memory. The American Airlines was the very first company that actually used computers for online booking. Now, because the computers were that big, the chairman of IBM made a very famous quote, a complete misstatement, which he said, "There's in the global market, in the global world." Excuse me, I have a bit of a stomach problem, yeah. A throat problem. In the global world, there's maybe a market for 4 or 5 computers. How wrong he was, right? So In the 1970s, we saw the rise of the personal computer, mainly driven by the Apple II personal computer, which is that one you see in that picture. But a major breakthrough was portable storage, and that was introduced by the floppy disk. And very importantly as well, I'm going to come back to this, Swift was created in 1973. Now, the CSIR was always been instrumental throughout these years in South Africa's industrial growth. It was part of the radio space research back in the day. It also built a carbon dating facility 15 meters below the ground in 1964. And in the 1970s, the CSIR was instrumental in researching hydraulics, wood and textile, and a remote satellite sensing station. In the 1980s, things will start to look a little bit more familiar. In the 1980s, you were an extremely important person if you walked around with one of these bricks on your ear. That was also when the first graphical user interface was actually developed on an Apple computer. So all the way up until that time, anything on a computer was basically just lines of text. All right, very difficult to interpret. And the World Wide Web was only launched in 1989. And again, the CSIR was instrumental through the history of time in technological advancement in South Africa. They built the National Accelerator Center in 1986 and a wind tunnel in 1988, which is still in operation today, a couple of 100 meters in that direction. Now, I'm going to skip over some of the other highlights, but I extracted all of this from a book which is available online. I can send you a soft copy if you're interested in what the CSIR exactly did in the last 75 years. Now, in the 1990s, I want to pause a little bit here, because this is key. Spoiler alert, I'm going to come to that. But in terms of money, we are in the 1990s, all right? You can draw a lot of parallels to where information was in that. Now, this is the decade where I also started developing my own conscience, and I suspect a lot of you as well. So many of the things that we saw in the 1990s, we can sort of relate to that. So the 1990s saw the very first browser. It was called Netscape, and that's beautiful blue screen that you see there. And it also started with the widespread digitization of text, images, and audio. So back in the day, I remember it quite well. As a kid, you'd walk around with a hard drive, and anyone that has an MP3 or a movie that you might not have, you plug it in there, and you get it from them. That's how we distributed music and movies and anything online, and we kind of became used to that. We also used dial-up modems, and that was sort of the very first adoption of email services. There was also a couple of business models in the 1990s that went completely belly up, such as pets.com, a fantastic concept, but it was just too early. And I'm going to pause on that in just a moment. Now, money today is exactly where information was in 1995, more or less. Okay? So our current financial system has all the bells and the whistles that the internet enables for it, right? But at its core, it remains a system that was designed in 1971 at the fall of the Bretton Woods Agreement. I look at our current financial system almost as like a horse with a jet engine on it. Sure, the jet engine's going to make it slightly faster, but it still remains a horse carriage, right? Now, as a practical example of this, I can give you, many examples. I'll give you a couple. If you are a developer and you are doing something, you want to do something very simple, such as look up a bank balance via API. That is basically impossible. If that is on your development roadmap, please add 6 months to your schedule and lots of headaches, because you will struggle, I can guarantee you. If you want to do something as simple as look up the USD ZAR rate through API, you can scrape Google. It was updated 30 minutes ago. All right, but that's about as far as you can get for free. If you want more than that, you're going to pay up a lot. Now, compare that with crypto. If I want the crypto price, I can get it from 15 sources. I can get liquidity, depth, spread, everything in half an afternoon. It's all free. I can query the crypto price 100 times a second without any trouble without any applications, without any banking license, without paying. So if you think about the current financial system, it is painstakingly slow, opaque, and expensive. It was built for an era before the internet, and we kind of just took the internet and we plug it here along the side, and we and try to make it look bright and shiny. It's like, so it is riddled with middlemen. Every single one of them taking their cut. Transactions are, as I say, slow and expensive. It is bound by business hours. So you can only do a transaction from 8 to 5 in the day during business hours. Don't try to do a cross-border transaction over the weekend. Even though it's computers, I don't know, they probably go to sleep over the weekends as well. There's no humans actually involved in there, but it feels like there is. Monetary policy currently today is decided on a quarterly basis by 6 individuals. I looked it up, 6 individuals sitting in a room every quarter and just deciding what you will pay for debt and the future of the entire economy once a quarter based on that. Now that is at least suboptimal, right? I mean, again, it's a system designed in prehistoric times. Now, just as the internet in 1995, we are seeing many blockchain applications today that will not work. I'm seeing that a lot. Like strategists are either wrong or they are just way too early. If you think about pets.com, for example, it was created in the late 1990s. This was a place where people can go and buy, food and pets and things for their pets. But it just completely failed. It was actually the worst IPO in the history of IPOs. And not that it's not a great business idea. I mean, today a website like that would flourish. But it's just the timing was just wrong. And we see that today as well. Like, it's early days. We have this blockchain ecosystem, which makes so much sense. You know, if you come back to the earth and there was no financial system, this is how you design it. You design it to only live on the internet. But the applications that we see today is just way, way, way too early. The market's not ready for that. And unfortunately, these guys are all going to burn their hands. The UX for blockchain is absolutely terrible. You know, just like back in the day in the 1990s, it was kind of clunky to send an email. My dad still uses a .apsonmail.co.za email address because back in the day it was hell of a cool way. You had an email address, you had an inbox. Not a lot of people had that. Today, I mean, it's just like this. And you don't need to know TCP in order to send an email. But today you need to know what a private and a public key is in order to use a Bitcoin wallet, right? It's extremely difficult. Now, we see the birth of Bitcoin as a pivotal moment for finance in which all of this changes. Again, on a very practical level, you can think of it as if you want to plug into a money movement ledger in South Africa. For example, you want to create a bank and you want to create a sub-ledger and you want people to transact, you need about 100 licenses. That's a real number. You need about 100 licenses to operate a bank in South Africa today. All right. If you want to create a sub-ledger that plugs into Bitcoin, you need 0 licenses. You don't need to apply for it. You do it in half an afternoon. And that's exactly the reason why we're seeing many of these exchanges in South Africa getting involved in payments, because it's such a no-brainer, right? You go, if you plug into a permissioned blockchain, and you have a sub-ledger in which all of your users have different balances, you don't need to go and transact on chain. So maybe that's a bit of a view into the future. Because if I want to pay you and we both registered with this exchange, that's just database change. You know, that's a sub-ledger. You can create many, many, many of these sub-ledgers. I can create one in half an afternoon if I want to do that. So we acknowledge that that this is possible. And this book, The Sovereign Individual, is a very, very valuable tool. And remember, I'm going to give it away. It's a very valuable tool of where we came from and where we are going. The Sovereign Individual, this book was written in 1997. And it kind of envisioned where the world's going in terms of the information age and what the internet can enable. It was extremely, extremely difficult to try and imagine what the internet would enable. I mean, you couldn't even fathom something like AI, and big data back in the 1990s because we were so used to the analog version of information sharing. I mean, even the very first websites on Netscape, they all looked like magazine pages. It was like the static page, which looked exactly like a magazine because that's what sold, because that's what people knew. And currently we're in exactly that state with money. If you think about Bitcoin, for example, or crypto, you have private and public key. Why? Because it's like a username and password. We don't abstract that away from the user. We use private and public keys because everyone knows what a username and password is. I mean, we're so stuck in what we know that it is almost impossible to envision where we are going. And this book helps a little bit with that. Because this book not only, written in 1997, 100% accurate about what the internet will enable in future, but also it predicted Bitcoin with 100% accuracy. It's quite amazing. It predicted that there would be this sovereign, decentralized currency that lives on the internet and that people would be able to use. And that's why this book is such a valuable tool, because it takes you out of your current perspective and tells you what the future will be like. And then if we move on in terms of the information age, after the 1990s, we saw the 2000s and 2010s. And this is where mobile, social media, cloud computing, and AI really became a reality. The first iPhone was introduced. We saw Facebook and Twitter. The first online bank account was introduced in the early 2000s. And we moved from a static web to an interactive web, where today there's no more static pages. There's no reloading. You click something and it happens automatically. All of our information is streamed. This is a key point. We don't carry around hard drives anymore, which you plug in to get your information in bulk format. Everything is streamed. You want to listen to a piece of music, you open your phone and you listen to it on demand. So imagine money works like that as well. Move on 10 years and imagine that you pay for your insurance on a per second basis from the time you switch on your car to the time you switch it off. There's no debit orders. There's no quarterly reports from companies. Everything is live. Everything is on demand. All right, I'm almost done. And then in the 2020s and beyond, about what we will see, there's a very, very interesting case study happening right now, which I must share with you guys, because it really gives us some vision into the future. And that's this bot called the Terminal of Truth. Who knows about it? Oh man, it's a fantastic story. Fantastic. Please go read up about it. So the Terminal of Truth was created as an LLM bot by a guy that just let it free. All right? Some basic programming. It plugs into an AI LLM, and now it's just raining the internet without anyone controlling it. And this bot was given, quite a broad mandate about just do stuff. Let's just see what you can do. At first, it raised money. So it went onto Twitter and it said, hey, what can someone give me money? And there was this venture capitalist who gave it $50,000. But it had a Bitcoin wallet. Very important. It had a Bitcoin wallet. And he gave him $50,000 in Bitcoin. Then the bot went and said, okay, well, I want to make more money. So let's see what I can do. It was involved in some chat rooms, so it knew what's going on in the world, right? And it put out a bounty for a developer to give it some extra powers, to plug into the Solana blockchain and launch a meme coin. And that's exactly what he did. He launched a meme coin, then he showed the meme coin on Twitter, and that meme coin was worth $100 million, like overnight. And now this LLM is out on the loose. It has $100 million in crypto. It just tweets random stuff, and it acts like a real person. It tweets every 5 minutes. The biggest load of crap. But go look at what it says. But I just think that phenomenon shows us where money is going. It's going into the direction where there's no distinction between human and machine, where we're going to question ourselves, what is the real meaning of being human? Because money will be as transferable between humans and machines as anything else. And now the CSIR established the Emerging Digital Technology for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's quite a mouthful, right? Research center quite recently, and it consists of 4 research groups: artificial intelligence, extended reality, advanced Internet of Things, and distributed ledger technology, with a mandate to de-risk investment in the Fourth Industrial Revolution and to create cutting-edge technology for the public and private sectors. I lead the distributed ledger technology or blockchain research group at the CSIR. We're building some very interesting stuff. We are doing lots of critical R&D to prepare South Africa for this future that I just described to you guys. Some of our projects include payment technology, where we're doing the streaming of payments that I said, trying to do it extremely high frequent, on a very high frequency. We're doing chain analysis and risks. This is a flagship project of ours. We're doing document provenance using blockchains for that, and much, much more. We have a broad spectrum, and we're very, very open to discussion. Thank you very much. Oh, quickly, when was the sovereign individual written? Yes. That's correct. You must please read it and tell me what you think of this book. Thanks. Thank you.